Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. As-salatu was-salam ala Nabi Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to my channel. So I have been presenting to you a short series on Salafis, Barelwis, and today I will talk about Deobandis. And before I start, I would like to remind you of the purpose of these videos. So the purpose is that the average Muslim has some sort of understanding of the key differences between these movements, because some of these key differences in their doctrines and their methodologies directly impacts the fatwa you receive from the ulama. Well, let's get into our today's topic, and that is Deobandis. Deoband is a place in India. The first Deobandi madrasa was established in Deoband in the 19th century, and it was known Darul Deoband. This madrasa had a very unique curriculum for its time, and this curriculum became famous, and many madaris around the country adopted this curriculum. So the Darul Deoband, its curriculum, its teachers, its staff, alumni, and their ideologies became very popular in India in the 19th century, and they eventually became known as the Deobandis. Deobandis and Barelwis both follow the same aqidah, the Maturidi aqidah. Both follow the same school of law, which is the Hanafi school of law. And the key difference between the two revolves around Sufism, around the certain Sufi doctrines and rituals. As for Deobandis and Salafis, they both follow a different aqidah. Salafis are Atharis, and also in terms of fiqh, Salafis either don't follow a school of law, any school of law, or some Salafis, mainly from the Saudi region, they would follow the Hanbali school of law. Yet, the Salafis and the Deobandis have something in common, and that is anti-celebration of Milad and Urs. Overall, a key difference between all three of these groups is their stance on Sufism. Salafis are completely against Sufism. Barelwis are completely for Sufism. As for the Deobandis, they are in between. Just how the Salafis, their aim their aim is to purify Islam. Similarly, the Deobandis, their aim is also to purify, but not the entire Islam like the Salafis. Their aim is to purify Sufism from all the excessive rites and rituals associated with it. So what do I mean by purifying Sufism? In my previous video on the Barelwis, I pointed out that Sufism has gone through a process of evolution. The Sufism that was practiced in India in the 19th century was the Sufism of a mediating sheikh, where the sheikh or the pir was a mediator between the disciple and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Prior to this mediating sheikh, the relationship between the disciple and the student was of a teaching sheikh, where the sheikh would teach the student. So Deobandis want to take Sufism back to the teaching sheikh. Now, the teaching sheikh was at its peak during the classical era of Sufism, and Deobandis know they cannot go back to the classical era, because much later on, during the 12th century, Sufism was divided into Sufi orders. There were many Sufi orders, and that's the Sufism we still have today. There are many Sufi orders. So Deobandis want to have a teaching sheikh who teaches the students to connect with Allah, but it will be through different Sufi orders. And Deobandis are very flexible with all the Sufi orders, but they mainly follow two of them. That's Naqshbandi and Chishti order. So let's focus on some of the key differences between Deobandis and the Barelwis. The most controversial issue between the Deobandis and the Barelwis is the Mawlid of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So remember, Salafis completely oppose the Mawlid. The Barelwis completely are for the Mawlid. And Deobandis, let's find out what they say. So for Deobandis, they oppose singing, the sama' on the Mawlid, and this means the singing of nasheeds and qawalis. They strictly oppose the qiyam, which is standing out of respect for Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They also are against any sorts of decorations and distribution of food, and they consider most of this is all done out of riya. A very famous Deobandi scholar, his name was Ashraf Ali Tanwi. He wrote the famous book Behshti Zevar. So what he did, he divided Mawlid into three kinds. He said the first type is the completely permissible Mawlid, and this is when two or more people get together, and they get together by chance. They did not plan to get together on a particular day, and when they got together, they spoke about the seerah, the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They spoke about hadith, and they did not take part in any kind of bid'at. So this type of Mawlid is completely permissible. The second type of Mawlid, he said, it is completely impermissible, and this is a Mawlid where there is singing, decoration, lighting, food, qiyam, and the belief that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is actually present in that majlis, in that gathering. And this is the type of Mawlid which the Barelwis celebrate. So for Deobandis, this type of Mawlid, it's completely impermissible. And then there is a third type, and that's in between the two, and this is when two or more people got together, and it was not by chance. They actually did plan it to get together, but when they got together, they just spoke about seerah, hadith, general virtues of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they did not do any sorts of bid'at. So this one, Ashraf Ali Tanwi did not clearly say if it's permissible or impermissible, but generally the Deobandi ulama would consider this type to be permissible. Another key area of contention between the two, it is the celebration of Urs. So remember, Urs is a celebration, an annual celebration where the disciples, they get together at the Sufi shrine where the Sufi is buried on the day he passed away. And on this day, they will have some sorts of celebrations. So for Deobandis, the purpose of going to a graveyard is to remember the hereafter, and the purpose of going to a graveyard is not to have any sorts of celebrations. And for them, this is completely impermissible, and this includes lighting lamps in the shrines, or decorating the shrines with flowers, or getting green chadars, this big green cloth on the graves, or even distributing candy and food. Anything to do with Urs is completely impermissible for the Deobandis. Another key difference between the two is to do with tawasul, and this is a tawasul which is done to those who have passed away. So Barelwis, they believe you can do tawasul through those people who have passed away. For Deobandis, this sort of tawasul is impermissible as it is a form of shirk, of polytheism. For Barelwis, or number 4, another key difference is that they believe in Hazir wa Nazir. And remember, I mentioned that previously. That means that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is present in the world. He can hear us, he can see us. For Deobandis, they reject that Rasulullah is physically present, and instead they believe in something insana kamil. That means that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a perfect person. Another key contention between the two is that the Barelwis, they believe that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is made of a physical noor. So this noor is the actual light which was derived from Allah. The Deobandi consider this noor metaphorically, so they interpret it as the knowledge. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was gifted knowledge, true knowledge of the deen, knowledge of Tawheed. And generally speaking, the Deobandis actually do defend Sufism. They are not against Sufism, and they mainly defend Sufism against the Salafis, because Salafis are completely against Sufism. But the Sufism that Deobandis defend is the Sufism without all of the excessive rites and rituals associated with it. For them, for the Deobandis, Sufism is actually part of the Sharia. So the way fiqh deals with our external actions, Sufism deals with our internal state. And the purpose of Sufism is edification. It is to instill morality in our character, instill qualities of zuhad, of khushu', being humble, of shukr, having gratitude, of sabr, patience, of taqwa, being mindful of Allah, of tawakkul, putting your trust in Allah. That is the purpose of Sufism, to instill these type of qualities in us and to make us strong to fight against evil characteristics like hasad, which is jealousy, riya, show off, or greed, or just generally these evil characteristics. For Deobandi Sufism, its purpose is edification of character, to make us morally and ethically better people, and not have to go through a mediator sheikh for him to do everything. We need to take responsibility for our own actions. In my first video, when I spoke about Salafis, I mentioned that the Salafis can roughly be divided into 3 groups. There are many, but just roughly. And a small section of them are the jihadists. Another small section is they are the politically active ones, who are mainly in the Middle East. And the Salafis that we have in UK and Europe are mainly those who can be called puritanical. They emphasize on purifying the religion and they give da'wah. Similarly, the Deobandis can also be roughly divided into 3 types. So the first type are the jihadists, and they are Taliban. The second type are politically active, and they are mainly in the subcontinent. As for the Deobandis in UK and Europe, their main focus is da'wah, establishing many institutes and providing learning for the Muslims in these countries, and to purify Sufism from its excessiveness. The Deobandis have always been very active in establishing seminaries, Islamic seminaries. In the UK, one of the earliest Islamic seminary that was established here was by the Deobandi Alima in 1973, known as Darul Ulum Bari. And they have many Islamic seminaries. They have established many Islamic seminaries in UK, in Kent, Bolton, Blackburn, Dewsbury, and these are like the major ones. And there are many smaller Islamic seminaries all over UK. But the thing is, most of these Islamic seminaries, they still adopt the Dars-e-Nizami curriculum, which was first introduced in the 19th century. But at that time, it was a very innovative curriculum. But now this curriculum is in need of a reform. Also, I would like to point out that more than 40% masajid in UK are Deobandi masajid. I did not intend to give any personal feedback, but I would just like to point out one thing to the students of knowledge. For students of knowledge, my advice is do not learn deen only from a very selective ulama from one movement. Broaden your horizons. Go to ulama from all different movements and you will learn a lot. But be very critical. Do not take everything everyone tells you. Be selective, critical, and learn from everyone, and that will actually give you more deeper knowledge. See you all very soon. If you have any topics in mind that you do want me to discuss, then please feel free to write in the comment section, and inshallah I will try my best to talk about those topics. See you soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.